The chat logs were never supposed to surface, but they did. And once you see what's inside, you'll understand why a federal court just gave Drake 21 days to explain himself, or watch everything collapse. Before we get into this, understand something. This is not a rumor. This is not Twitter drama. What I'm about to walk you through is a federal racketeering case, the same legal weapon used to dismantle crime families aimed directly at Aubrey Drake Graham. The Eastern District of Virginia doesn't issue orders over hurt feelings. They issue orders because evidence demanded a formal response under oath. On March 24, 2026, that is exactly what happened, and the clock started ticking. But here's what nobody is talking about. This case didn't materialize from thin air. There's a trail: paper, digital, and money. And if you follow it from leaked communications to offshore transfers to a mysterious figure in Australia, you realize something terrifying. The streaming dominance we were told was organic, the chart positions we were told reflected real demand, all of it might be the most elaborate digital fraud scheme the music industry has ever seen. I'm going to show you every layer, every dollar, every bot, every lie. Two Virginia residents named LaShawn Ridley and Tiffany Hines decided they'd seen enough. They filed a class action lawsuit in the United States federal court system seeking at least $5 million in compensatory and punitive damages, legal representation from Impressa Legal Group, documented evidence, and something Drake has never faced: a RICO charge. If RICO doesn't send a chill down your spine, let me explain why it should. The Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act was designed to take down the mafia. That's the firepower aimed at the Six God right now. RICO allows plaintiffs to argue that multiple illegal acts form a coordinated criminal enterprise. Duncan Levin, a Harvard law lecturer and former federal prosecutor, stated on record that RICO lets plaintiffs tell a bigger story, arguing the whole system was designed to generate money illegally. That's not gossip. That's Harvard law laying the framework for a landmark case. So what's the system? This is where it gets genuinely disturbing. The lawsuit names 4 defendants: Drake, Adin Ross, Stake through parent company Sweepstakes Limited, and a man most of you have never heard of, George Nguyen, based in Australia. Nguyen might be the most important name in this case. According to filings obtained by Billboard and Pitchfork, he's the primary bot farm broker, the man who allegedly took money funneled through an unregulated online gambling platform and converted it into hundreds of millions of fake streams injected directly into Spotify and other major digital music services. Let that settle, because what it implies is staggering. Now let me walk you through the plumbing of this operation. How money moved from a gambling site to chart manipulation, because once you understand the flow, you cannot unsee it. It starts with Stake. Founded in Australia in 2017, Stake is a billion-dollar online gambling company whose meteoric rise coincided with the cryptocurrency explosion. In 2022, Drake inked a promotional partnership with Stake that was reportedly worth $100 million annually. Let me say that again so it registers. $100 million annually. Not for music, not for touring, for being the public face of an online gambling platform. He would go live on streams, wager astronomical amounts of money in front of millions of viewers, celebrate outrageous wins, and create this intoxicating perception that Stake was where ordinary people could transform their lives overnight. But here is the first devastating crack in the facade. The lawsuit claims that Drake was never actually gambling with his own money, not a single real penny. According to the filings, Stake provided him with secret house credits, meaning every single time he went live and celebrated those massive jackpots, every time his face lit up as the numbers climbed higher, it was theater, choreographed deception. He was a paid actor performing the role of a fearless high-stakes gambler, while the actual currency at risk came directly from the platform itself. The millions of people watching had no idea. They saw their favorite artist winning big, felt the adrenaline vicariously, and thought, if Drake is making this kind of money here, maybe I can too. And that is precisely the predatory psychological trap that the lawsuit alleges was being deliberately constructed. Now this is the critical junction where the gambling scheme and the streaming fraud collide. And I need your full attention because this connection is the reason RICO is on the table and the reason this case could bring down more than just one man's career. Stake has a built-in feature called the tipping function. On the surface, it appears completely innocent, a standard feature allowing users to send virtual tips to each other as casual social interaction, something you'd find on Twitch or any live streaming platform. But the lawsuit alleges this tipping function was operating as something far more dangerous, a wholly unregulated money transmitter operating outside the oversight of any financial regulatory body. Instead of small tips flowing between casual users, enormous sums were allegedly being funneled from Drake and Adin Ross directly to George Nguyen in Australia. One publicly documented example cited in the actual court complaint is a $100,000 tipping transfer between Drake and Ross in 2023. And here is a detail that should make every skeptic sit up straight. Just days before this very lawsuit was filed, Drake reportedly gave Adin Ross a $220,000 car as a gift. The proximity of that gesture to the legal filing raises questions that will absolutely need to be answered in a courtroom. But the money flowing to Nguyen wasn't sitting in some bank account collecting dust. According to the lawsuit, Nguyen used those transferred funds to hire specialized bot vendors, operators who manage what the industry calls streaming farms. Now, these are not amateurs sitting in a basement clicking play on repeat. These are sophisticated digital operations specifically engineered and calibrated to manipulate the recommendation algorithms that power the entire global music industry. The bots would generate hundreds of millions of artificial plays across Drake's entire Spotify catalog, which would then trick the platform's algorithm into categorizing Drake as the most popular and in-demand artist on the planet. That manufactured signal would automatically push his songs into organic editorial playlists, algorithmic recommendation feeds, Discover Weekly queues, and every curated listening space where real human listeners would encounter his music and naturally assume that the popularity was completely genuine. The cycle is diabolical. Fake success creates a pathway for real success by hijacking the very system designed to surface authentic demand. And here is the dimension that elevates this from a music industry scandal into something that touches the entire digital economy. Forbes reported that the illegal crypto casino market in the United States captured $38.7 billion in 2025, representing a staggering 74% of total U.S. crypto betting volume. That is the ecosystem Drake was promoting to his audience. That is the financial ocean his $100 million stake deal was swimming in. And the lawsuit alleges that a portion of the profits generated from this massive, unregulated gambling pipeline were being strategically siphoned off to purchase chart positions, manufacture artificial cultural relevance, and construct a version of Drake's commercial career that simply did not correspond to reality. But wait, because it gets significantly worse. The lawsuit doesn't just allege that bot farms were deployed to inflate Drake's numbers. It claims these exact same amplification campaigns were actively weaponized against his competitors. We are talking about documented allegations of coordinated efforts to suppress, disparage, and systematically downvote rival artists whenever they attempted to release new music. Fabricate popularity for yourself on one side, then fabricate failure for everyone else on the other. The complaint specifically states that this manipulation has suppressed authentic artists and narrowed consumers' access to legitimate content by undermining the integrity of curated experiences. Let that land. If you are an independent artist grinding to break through, or even a major label artist dropping a project at the wrong moment, there was allegedly a digital assassination squad operating in the shadows, funded by illegal gambling money, making absolutely certain that your streaming numbers looked worse so that Drake's numbers looked better by comparison. Your art didn't just have to compete against his art, it had to compete against an invisible army of machines designed to erase your visibility.
Think about every single time you opened Spotify and saw Drake dominating every other slot on a playlist.
Every time the recommendation engine seemed almost pathologically obsessed with pushing his catalog into your ears regardless of your listening habits. Every time he sat at number one, while the energy in the actual streets, in actual barbershops, in actual cars, told a completely different story. If these allegations are validated, none of that was organic. It was purchased, manufactured, coded into existence by an army of automated accounts funded by gambling revenue that was laundered through cryptocurrency on a platform disguised as a harmless social casino. Before we go deeper into the legal war and the Kendrick Lamar connection that makes this exponentially more devastating, drop a comment right now. Were you suspicious before this came out? Did the numbers ever feel wrong to you? Because what we're about to examine next changes the entire legacy conversation permanently. The social casino loophole sits at the legal foundation of this entire RICO case, and most people still don't fully comprehend how it operates or why it matters. Real money online gambling is illegal in most U.S. states, including Virginia, where this lawsuit was filed. So stake uses virtual currency, tokens that technically are not U.S. dollars. But these tokens can be converted into cryptocurrency, and that cryptocurrency can immediately be converted into real money. Duncan Levin stated that courts tend to look past formal labels and examine economic reality. The key questions are whether users pay real money to participate, whether tokens have real-world value or convertibility, and whether the platform simulates traditional gambling mechanics. If the virtual currency functions as a proxy for cash, and the lawsuit argues it emphatically does, courts may treat the entire operation as illegal gambling, regardless of what state calls its digital tokens. California has already banned sweepstakes casinos outright. Multiple states are following, and promoting this platform across state lines through celebrity endorsements elevates the entire matter to a federal jurisdiction, which is precisely why RICO applies. Now let me show you the irony that makes this whole situation almost divinely poetic. Because Drake did not merely stumble into this RICO case, he constructed the door and walked through it himself. Late 2024. Drake was so utterly consumed by the cultural dominance of Kendrick Lamar's track Not Like Us that he filed a legal petition against Universal Music Group and Spotify. His argument was explicit. Kendrick's streaming numbers were artificially inflated by bots. He pointed the accusatory finger directly at his rival. He attempted to weaponize the federal court system to discredit the one artist who was authentically threatening his commercial throne. October 2025. The petition was dismissed. A judge examined the claims, found them legally deficient, and threw the case out. Drake filed an appeal that currently remains pending. But the real damage was not from losing, it was from shining a judicial spotlight on the concept of streaming fraud itself. He drew the map, he highlighted the crime, and then every single piece of evidence that emerged afterward pointed directly back at his own front door. Follow this timeline and tell me it isn't devastating. November 2025. A separate class action lawsuit was filed against Spotify by artist RBX and others, alleging the platform knowingly ignored billions of fraudulent streams, many of which were specifically associated with Drake's catalog. The complaint stated, and I quote, "Every month, under Spotify's watchful eye, billions of fraudulent streams are generated from fake, illegitimate, and/or illegal methods." The filing argued Spotify had minimal incentive to police fake streams because bot-generated plays still produce advertising revenue, meaning the platform was financially motivated to look the other way, while Drake's numbers were being pumped artificially. Then, December 31st, 2025, New Year's Eve, the Virginia RICO lawsuit landed. For the first time ever, streaming fraud allegations were tied directly to Drake through named co-conspirators, documented financial transactions, and chat logs allegedly showing direct coordination between his operation and bot farm broker George Nguyen. Harvard Law's analysis reveals exactly why this case is structurally different from anything Drake has previously encountered. Civil RICO allows plaintiffs to pursue treble damages, meaning if they win, financial penalties are automatically tripled. Legal analysts have described this as potentially a 9-figure damage case. The largest hurdle will be class certification under Rule 23. Gambling harms vary among users. But the plaintiff's strategy is clever. They wove the streaming fraud directly into the RICO framework, creating a legal narrative where the gambling scheme and the bot farm operation function as two synchronized prongs of a single criminal enterprise. Consumers weren't just harmed by illegal gambling, They were harmed by an entire deceptive ecosystem built on manufactured celebrity, artificially rigged charts, and algorithmic manipulation that fundamentally distorted what people listened to and how legitimate artists were compensated for their work. The March 2026 court order requiring a response within 21 days carries enormous procedural significance. The judge reviewed the complaint in its entirety and determined it was sufficient to compel a formal answer. Drake cannot post a passive-aggressive Instagram story and make this vanish. He must respond to specific allegations under the rules of federal civil procedure, and every word of that response becomes part of the permanent public record. If the case survives motions to dismiss, the first major legal battleground, discovery begins. That is the phase where Drake's legal team would be compelled to produce internal communications, financial records, detailed contracts with stake, complete documentation of any payments flowing to or through George Nguyen, and all evidence related to the streaming amplification campaigns. If a judge allows discovery, the floodgates swing open, and what's behind them could prove far more damaging than anything currently in the public complaint. And this brings us to the cultural earthquake at the center of everything: Kendrick Lamar. While Drake sits in the crosshairs of a federal RICO investigation, Kendrick just swept every single hip-hop category at the 2026 iHeartRadio Music Awards. Hip-Hop Song of the Year for Luther, Hip-Hop Artist of the Year, Hip-Hop Album of the Year for GNX. He did not require a single bot to get there. He did not need an offshore gambling platform funneling money to an Australian broker. He did not deploy an army of automated accounts manipulating recommendation algorithms in the dead of night. He walked into that ceremony and took everything because the music spoke for itself, and the culture recognized authenticity when it heard it. The contrast is so devastating, it almost feels like the universe is writing the screenplay. For years, Kendrick preached about the difference between fame and truth, between manufactured celebrity and genuine cultural impact. And every time he made that argument, Drake's camp would fire back with one weapon: numbers, monthly listeners, chart records, streaming milestones. That was the trump card that supposedly ended every debate. No matter what Kendrick said about lyricism and artistic integrity, Drake could point at the digital scoreboard and declare himself the winner. But what happens when the scoreboard itself is under federal investigation? When the numbers powering your entire legacy are reclassified as evidence in a racketeering case? When the charts you weaponized to mock your rival are being scrutinized by federal judges who couldn't care less about your Grammy shelf or your follower count? The devastation compounds when you layer the November 2025 Spotify lawsuit alongside the RICO case. Those filings identified billions of suspicious streams on Drake's catalog. Combine that with RICO allegations explaining precisely how those streams were financed, manufactured, and deployed, and you see a complete operational blueprint allegedly running for years beneath the surface of the entire industry. Every manipulated playlist, every artificial recommendation, every fraudulently maintained chart position. If proven, the competitive landscape of streaming music was systematically distorted by one operation's willingness to convert illegal gambling profits into digital deception at an industrial scale.
Drake defenders argue this is civil, not criminal, and that lawsuits get filed every day. A fair observation, and Levin acknowledged that many civil RICO claims are dismissed at the pleading stage, but he also characterized this case as a canary in the coal mine. It places these allegations into the public record for the first time, and if any merit exists, consequences will extend far beyond this class action. He specifically mentions streaming platforms launching their own internal investigations, alongside state and federal governmental authorities taking a direct interest. This civil lawsuit could become the catalyst for a full criminal investigation. The alleged existence of chat logs documenting coordination with bot vendors means there is a traceable evidentiary trail. And once that trail enters the federal record through this case, prosecutors can follow it like a roadmap. There's one final dimension that ties everything together with an almost uncomfortable neatness. In August 2025, Drake publicly clashed with Stake after having withdrawal attempts blocked. By October, he posted an Instagram video staging his discovery of $1 million balance restored to his account. At the time, it read as celebrity drama, But in the context of this lawsuit, the entire public falling out takes on a different complexion. Was it genuine? Was it manufactured to create distance before legal filings arrived? Was Drake trying to establish plausible deniability by signaling to the world that his stake relationship was deteriorating, right as the legal walls were closing in? These are precisely the questions a federal court will want answered under oath. Drake rapped that he started from the bottom. Harvard Law's published analysis of this case opened with that exact lyric, then added, but if "here" relates to the popularity of his music on streaming platforms, that location might now be in contention. That is Harvard Law School publicly questioning the legitimacy of his entire streaming career. Federal judges do not evaluate racketeering charges based on monthly listeners. Playlist placements carry no weight when those positions were allegedly purchased with laundered gambling revenue. And Instagram captions cannot serve as a legal defense when chat logs documenting coordination with bot vendors are sitting in a federal court filing. The numbers defense is finished. The Chart King narrative is under active investigation, and the man who tried to accuse Kendrick Lamar of using bots is now facing federal allegations that he orchestrated the most expansive artificial streaming operation in the history of recorded music, financed by a $100 million gambling partnership that was itself allegedly operating illegally across American state lines. You cannot write a fall from grace more dramatic than this. You cannot construct irony more surgically precise than a man who pointed at his rival, screamed fake streams into a courtroom microphone, and then watched the entire federal apparatus turn around and say, "Actually, let's examine yours." And you absolutely cannot outrun the culture by hiding behind algorithms when that culture has already chosen its champion. A man who proves every single day that authentic bars, authentic impact, and authentic human connection will always outlast anything you can purchase with house money and offshore bots. This is not merely a legal case. This is the reckoning the music industry has avoided for a decade. This is the moment streaming platforms must answer for the fraud they may have knowingly enabled. And this is the definitive moment proving what Kendrick Lamar articulated from the very beginning. The real ones never needed a machine to win. They never did, and they never will. The clock is ticking, 21 days, and when that response arrives, or fails to arrive, the next chapter gets written in a federal courtroom where the only algorithm that matters is the law itself. If what those chat logs contain is half as damaging as the complaint suggests, the story of the last decade of music may need to be completely rewritten from the ground up. Drop your thoughts below. Let me know if you saw this coming, and if you're still here, you already know the protocol. Like, subscribe, share this with everyone, because truth has a way of finding its audience, even when somebody is spending $100 million a year trying to bury it in code and cryptocurrency. We'll be back the moment that deadline hits. Trust me, you absolutely do not want to miss what comes next. The receipts are out, the clock is running, and this time there is no algorithm in existence that can make it disappear.